over recent years, when I've become more inquisitive through therapy and through my own learning and my own understanding, I'm learning that control plays a big element, or lack of control.
Okay.
I've experienced eating disorders, anorexia nervosa and binge eating disorder. And I know I've read things about they're a form of control. In reality, for me, it didn't feel like that at all. I've actually felt that I wasn't in control. I felt like they were controlling me.
Okay.
The eating disorder, it was an outside force. It was like a godlike thing that was telling me.
Right.
I didn't realise that the voice that was saying, can't eat this, you can't eat that, I didn't realise it was coming from me. It felt like it was an outside entity that was telling me what to do and I had to comply to.
What does that mean, that the voice was coming from you?
It took me a long time to accept that it wasn't an outside entity and that the voice was coming from me, and understanding how the ego and the tape recording and the story that.
So it's the ego.
Yeah. And I like it. It really helped when you said you're the story you tell yourself. I really like that. And it through therapy and talking, I've been able to explore what that actually means and where that story comes from. It just doesn't magically appear. And so the tape recording, the story that I've got in my head about calories, about eating, or about my obsessive compulsive disorder routines, they're actually that tape recording being played that I picked up through my development and a way of controlling things. But the reality for me was it felt that they were controlling me.
Right.
And
so
I had to appease it by doing as it was told. So I've always felt out of control rather than in control, which is what I read. Oh, eating disorders are a form of control. In fact, well, it don't feel like that.
Yeah, I guess as well, when did you feel in control when when you'd reached the goals, in your anorexia, that when you were in that stage, did you feel in control when you reached the goal of losing weight?
No. I felt I did feel some sense of relief when I'd get weighed and it hadn't gone up, or when I knew I was eating less calories. There was that sense of relief because I was doing what the voice said. I was trying to appease it, but because I'm learning now it's a tape recorder, it doesn't respond to circumstance. So even when I got weighed and I'd lost weight, I'm like, I can do better. You need to do more. Yeah, you might have only eaten 100 calories today, so tomorrow you need to eat 90. Tomorrow. And so I never felt that sense of achievement or that I'd reached or succeeded. It were always relief. I could do better. And there were always that element, I guess, that you get when you're growing up, that you could do better. I think that was very much part of the voice for me.
So could you see that, what plays out in the body naturally anyway is think, feel and act. And we do that all day long. We do think, feel and act. So you think, oh, you can need the toilet. I can feel it. I'm going to act on it.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen in that process? I'm going to think about it. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to act on it. What happens when I act on it? I feel relief. I think I might be hungry. I can feel it. I'm going to act on it. I feel good when I've eaten. So can you see how, your body's just doing, it's like a train, moving forward. So you set it off. Then when it reaches its destination, you feel relief.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually what you were doing in the eating disorder. In the eating disorder, the thinking's going on, and you want to feel a sense of relief, a sense of just a little bit of respite, constantly chasing. So you end up constantly chasing the relief in that. But ultimately, you never get it, do you? So when you said that's in control, because it's only short-lived, and when things work, they work once.
And it mirrors across other labels that I've been given. Like when you describe it, they're like, well, that's the same as obsessive compulsive disorder.
It is, yeah.
It's the routine. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Right, I've put my clothes in a certain way. I've checked this in a certain way. And it's not, you get an instant relief for a few seconds and it move on to the next one, move on to the, but what if it's this tomorrow? What if something happens and I can't do this? What?
So can you see the
the relief is seconds long.
It is, so that's why I say you do something once, you switch a light on once, if it's working, the light's on.
Yeah.
If something doesn't work, you have to keep doing it, you have to keep taking it. So can you see how your focus is relief?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so instead of doing the think, feel and act, yeah, if you don't, because you ultimately want relief from this, so you want it to stop. So the best thing to do is at the beginning is to stop. And then, but you want, because the very thing, the motions that you're going through are creating a disturbance. So the story is creating a disturbance in itself. And the story creates a disturbance, and then you feel the disturbance, and then you relieve the disturbance. Can you just manage the disturbance then?
Thinking back at that time and how I have elements of atypical anorexia now and with binge eating disorder and still OCD, I don't know whether it's because that I've had them for such a long time that they become automatic or not, but that pause isn't there. It's afterwards. It's like, oh, I could have done that different. That response is so immediate and automatic and so ingrained. It's like I didn't have the chance to do that stop and pause until afterwards, if that makes sense.
It does, because you're focused on your energy, the bit that you don't realize. If you take a step back from that, so you're going to take a step back from setting off the train, and you have a look and you say, who was interested in the train in the first place? Do you see what I mean? So it's only because you're sending the focus to it in the first place. So that bit's your control, which you're not aware of. That you're the one that's looking at this and giving it energy without you switching on this channel in your brain as and setting it off to, or pressing the button of the recording machine. Without you looking at that and giving that interest, yeah, it wouldn't set off in motion. It can't set off in motion without you, because you were born before the thinking voice. Before you were recorded on by society, you were born without that.
Like that blank slate.
So it's not all blank, but you were born without that. So it's going back to that. It's going back to then, who am I that's setting this off? So it's like other things that we end up doing things out of habit and say, well, I've done this for such a long time, I can't stop doing it. That's like saying, I've eaten Yorkshire puddings and roast beef for Sunday lunch for that long, I can't stop doing it. Well, what if you went to a country that didn't have that kind of food? What do you think would happen? You'd eat something different, wouldn't you? So it's that everything that we tell ourselves is a story. I've been doing this for such a long time now, it's a habit. It's that I can't give it up now. I've been doing it 20 years, 30 years. It's a habit. It's like, that's just another interesting story.
And it is a get out clause. I think I've used that myself.
Yeah.
The things that I really don't want to change or I'm scared to change, I'll go, no, I've done it. Do you know what I mean?
I've been in this abusive relationship for such a long time. I've been in this abusive friendship for you've been friends for a long time now, you should stay together. It's like, it's toxic. Oh, well, I'm sure you can figure it out. Because that's what we all do. Yeah, until we don't.
Yeah, like at work, you're in you don't like work, but I'll do it.
Leave your job. Can't leave my job, I need to stay in it. And it's like, why? And so people do these things as, I've been doing this for X amount of years. It's like, what difference does that make, really?
Yeah.
Really, what difference does it make? If you're on repeat for X amount of years, no matter what you're doing, does it mean that you should still do it? Does it mean that we can't stop? So it's not. No, that's not true. It's just another false story that we've told. So it becomes where we're comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah, in that way. instead of just saying, I'm not going to be comfortable being uncomfortable in that way because I've done this for such a long time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge and take my power back. And I'm just going to challenge being uncomfortable because I already know what it feels like. You already know what the nagging voice is going to do. You already know that a feeling's going to erupt because of the nagging voice. You already know those things. So it's like, well, why don't you just bring the feeling on there? Because if you think that, now think of it this way, because I know that you're almost taking a deep breath. You're like, yeah, I can't do that.
It sounds easier than it thinks when you think the world's going to explode or something like that.
Let's say this uncomfortable feeling might last a week. Yeah, just a week. It might last just a week and it'll start tapering off this uncomfortable feeling. It might last a month, but ultimately it's not going to be as bad as the first time. It's going to go off and off and off and off and off. Yeah?
It sounds so easy.
It does sound so easy, right? Okay, how many years have you been doing this uncomfortable feeling for? Now, does that sound easy?
No.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? So it's like, ultimately, you're saying, I can't stop this. Well, how many years have you been doing it for? Well, the majority of my life. Okay. Well, why don't you just decide I'm going to be uncomfortable then for the last month and then it's going to stop? And I'll just have relief all the time because there'll be nothing for me to relieve. So it's all based on a story, you know, when you look at the reality and say, well, how long have you been doing that for?
It's like I want to say, yeah, that's really good. When I've done it in practice, it's like if my binge eating switch goes off and I want to eat,
there isn't a switch.
That's what it feels like. It's like a switch that goes off that says, right, you need to eat, and you need to eat anything you can get your hands on. And I've mentioned before, I eat things I don't like, things that are raw, things that are not cooked, things from the bin. I'll eat anything until there's nothing left. But when I know that switch goes off and I can first think, I want food and I'm going for food, that force, that energy, I don't think I could live. I've only been ever able to hold back seconds before eating. So I don't know how I can do that.
But you're the one that's giving it energy. So there's something before that. That can't exist without your energy. The ego, you know, as it's playing out, it needs energy. It needs
so I controlled the switch going. It wasn't just a switch.
Yeah.
And now how to deal with it. I am the switch.
You are the switch because you're laid back and saying, I'm not in control of this. Well, you know, until you think leg move. Do you see what I mean? Then the leg's not going to move until, you know,
I'm waiting too late.
Exactly, because the body can't do anything without you being in it. It's like a dead carcass until you put life into it. You are the life itself that goes into the body. You are the energy, the electrical system that goes into your body, and then it starts to do what it needs to do. So you can't do it because if there was a switch, then when you passed away, you'd be still doing it. There isn't a switch. It can't exist without you. It doesn't exist without you.
So I've been trying to.
You've been in it, stirring the soup, trying to...
And managing it when it's
when you're
going, rather than preempting, planning, dealing with it, so the switch don't go off.
Well, ultimately, you know what people do with their ego, they believe it's them who they are. They believe that they're this chattering voice, and they believe everything that it's telling them. And so because they believe it, you know, it's if you believe a certain thing about who you are, then you make that true because you believe it. It's not true, but you've been programmed with that.
Yeah, and I think why I see it, and I still, it seems my default position, I still see it as an outside force, because all my life I've thought people know better than me. I do as I'm told. I'm compliant. Everybody else makes decisions.
Do you believe that?
No. But I think that's why my voice was an outside entity, because I've always looked outside.
Well, it came from the ultimately, you're right. The voice came from the outside, of people telling you things that they've been programmed with.
Mm.
Because, you know, the biggest thing you can do is not believe a word anybody says. Find out for yourself.
Mm.
Your body came onto this planet equipped with everything that it needed. And then we stopped listening to it and started listening to stories that had been made up.
Mm.
Yeah. Also, everybody's got a story of an experience or what somebody told them. But just because somebody tells you something, doesn't matter what position or what label they've got in life, doesn't mean it's true.
Mm.
Because there are many people with many labels who you'd look up to and they believe things that are true, that they believe is true, and they aren't.
Mm.
You know, so it's that way. But the truth remains the same, but life changes.
Mm.
So when people used to believe that smoking was good for them, eventually that life changed. It's like, oh, it's not good for you now. The things that we believe that, you know, so it's like then those people that believe that only realised that it wasn't good for them because the body told the truth and it kind of revealed that. So it's like, doesn't that make sense then? Just if these things that we believe that are true and they end up not being, how do you find out that they're not true? You don't find out from somebody with a label. You find out from the layman with the body.
Mm.
Do you see what I mean? But society tends not to look at your body and just and just makes a story up about the body rather than let's listen to what the body's saying. Geez, what do you know harm? Well, why don't I let my body give me the answer to that? It's because your body will always tell you the truth. Do you see what I mean? The chattering voice won't, but your body will. And usually, if I say something to you, or to you know, kind of say, well, it sounds like this, or it might be that, or you know, you'd say that makes sense. So there's a part of you that it fits with inside, and you say that makes sense because I can feel it.
Mm.
Or there might be something that I might say, and you say that doesn't make sense, and I can't feel it. So for me, that can't be true. So that's why you have to be your own, you know, professor with your own body, because it has all the intelligence with it, and it has a lot more intelligence than the story-making ego.
Mm.
So that's what I'm saying. That came before this chattering voice.
Mm.
So when you then can look at that, you then start to see, as you begin to see, not only see your ego, but other people's as well, and recognizing some of what they said didn't make sense.
I'm reflecting while you're talking. I'm reflecting on a question somebody once asked me once, and they'd looked at my medical history and more about the interventions that I'd had from when I was 19, when I first came into mental health services, and I was saying what I'd been through and this, that, and other. And they asked why had that chunk of intervention not really helped or not really moved me any forward, but yet I was saying about how I'd changed due to therapy. And they were saying, what's the difference? What can you put it in a nutshell sort of thing? And I'm thinking during those the intention was good. I'm not saying it's about the intention, but the intention was good, but I listened to people's voices, people's own egos. I was told what to do. I was given false promises. I was told, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. With therapy, it was more of a, let's have a think. What have you got to say? And that kind of thing. Have you thought about this? It was more not listening to somebody's voice, their own voice, you know, do this, do that. It was a lot of the original first interventions that I had were all about, you're doing this, you need to do that, you need to do that. And then the comment was, oh, you haven't improved very much, you must be doing something wrong. But, and it's
as if you're you know, I know the body is a machine, but as if you're just a machine.
Yeah.
Into saying, you know, this is what we have, this is the model that we have, and this is the model we give to everybody, and it should work. And ultimately, that's what society, that's what society says, because if you were to, you're programmed with certain things, and then everybody else is programmed with certain things, then it's compliance. Ultimately, it all comes down to compliance. The must should have to got to. So you should be doing it this way, and you should be that. And it's like, where did they get the should from then? And it's asking the question, where did they get the should from? Well, they got it from what they learned. So they can only show you what they learned. And if they learned a narrative in a tiny box and didn't come out of that box, then this is what I learned. This is what I got for what I learned. This is my certificate. So this is what I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Does it mean it's right? Isn't the question always why? Isn't the question, isn't that the what, why, where, and when? Are we supposed to ask these questions? But quite often when somebody's in that box, they can, sometimes you might be told, oh, it's just one of those things. Or we don't know the answer, which is really unscientific to say science is supposed to know everything. Do you see what I mean? Or discover everything. But it can only go as far as the person that's doing the science can go.
But I also think I'd rather have that honesty rather than those false promises. If you do this, it'll sort everything out. If you do this, it'll sort everything out. One of the things when I came into therapy with you and my previous therapy, it was like, don't know what's going to happen. Don't know what's going to uncover. Don't know how long things are going to take. And I valued that. I didn't have to live up to a criteria, or I didn't have targets to meet, or I wasn't, all I can think of is the word, I wasn't given any false promises. It was just a matter of, I'm here to support you, we'll go through it together and we'll see what happens, sort of thing.
So can you see what's happening with you then? Is when we spoke about control, yeah, you said I didn't feel in control. I feel that the eating disorder's in control of me, and I don't feel in control of it. Where did you get that from? I got it from society, because in society I never felt in control. I didn't feel that I was in control. It was left to, and I was doing it wrong. And so the kind of, it mirrors, doesn't it? The must, the should, the have, and the got to. The voice that you have in your head, can you see now where it come from? And now, so when you see where it come from, that everybody's in control, because everybody's being controlled by something else, instead of saying, when you learn something, do you ever, after you've learned it, say, but is what I've learned correct? Is that really right, what I've just learned? Is it? Because in the simplest of forms, I see things quite simply, when I always look at nature and say, why aren't nature, I don't see any birds queuing up for toilet roll as we do. Why doesn't nature do this? Why ain't nature growing oats? I don't see anything that birds know what to eat. Animals, wild animals know what to eat. And yet with us, who say we're the most intelligent thing on the planet, don't know what to eat. We don't know what to eat. We have to ask. We've invented calories that don't really exist. We eat food that's no longer food because it's a chemical. So we're the ones that's manifested all these things. Instead of keeping it really simple, like nature does, everything that has already been given to us. So when we tamper with it, we just make a mess. And so, all these rules and things like that we live by, and we become slaves, slaves to them. So I say, I might have said this before, is that when, say for instance, you've accidentally put petrol in your car and you're texting yourself, and you go to the garage, or you call the guy out that can come and clean it, and you say, can't you just put a pill in that car, and then it'll make it all nice and clear, and then I can just put, the diesel in the car. And say, no, you can't just do that. Well, why? Because you can't. You have to we have to clean it. We have to clean the pipes. We have to clean, the belly of the car. We have to clean all that. Belly of the car meaning petrol tank. But we have to clean all that, and then we can put the right fluid in. Like, oh, that's really simple. That doesn't it make sense? It fits really well, doesn't it, when you say that? And he says you put the wrong thing, so you can't put a pill in it, you can't put something else in there, you have to clean it all out, don't you? Now, I don't know, I wrote this in the book, I don't know, maybe maybe some people that work in the garage might have had a doctorate and they decided to work in a garage, but they don't. Ultimately, they're an engineer, yeah, or a mechanic, yeah, and that's what they do. And in its simplest form, they know. You put something in something, you have to clean it out. And yet, you have all these interventions for you, instead of cleaning out, which makes sense psychologically, makes sense emotionally, clean all the bad stuff out that shouldn't be in there. If you eat something, clean it out so it shouldn't be in there. So that's what I don't understand. It doesn't fit. Does that fit for you? Yeah. Then when you're applying these things and doing certain things, or taking certain medications, and I'm not saying I don't have their use, but does it make sense to do that?
Yeah, it's just
putting something on top of something.
That's it, masking.
And creating another problem because you're putting something on top of something on top of something. Yeah, and that's what we tend to do, not just for that, or many things, including your eating disorder, or including, the things that you've been told. Well, we need to do this, or we need to do that, and that hasn't worked. So hasn't it worked? It might be because you're applying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that feels out of control, as you've said. And what it sounded like is that what fit for you, what seemed to make sense for you, is to say, let's see where this goes then. Let's explore and find out. Let's get some things out and have a look at them and see why that's happened. Yeah. Does that fit?
Yeah. I think using that analogy about the car and stuff, it's not just get the petrol out or the diesel out, the one that you put in wrong and everything will be all right. It's about understanding why it was in there in the first place and stuff. I'm just thinking about my eating disorder. A lot of the interventions they had originally were all focused on the eating disorder. And so you would with the car focus on, all right, it's got petrol in it now, we want diesel in it, put diesel in it, but not looking at why it was there in the first place. And so I spent a lot of time being treated and thinking about just the eating disorder. Another analogy that I like that I use is like, that's the smoke alarm. But instead of just quietening the smoke alarm, let's look at where the fire is. Why is the fire burning? Why is it keeping burning? How will it put it out? How will we prevent it happening again? Whereas the eating disorder is like the damaged car. It's like the smoke alarm. It's just the superficial thing. We need to know why.
Yes. And that's
in the first place.
Yeah, and it's the way that you see the world then. It's like, if you form the fire brigade, they're going to go to the source. They want to find out the source, what happened here. And they will find out the source after the fire has been put out. Do you see what I mean? So they've not only gone to find out the why, we want to know when, we want to know how, we want to ask questions. Do you see what I mean? We want to take it outside of what we're seeing outside of this tiny box. So it's that in the when you do that, you feel in control. But when somebody puts you in a box, then it's like being put in any box, isn't it? You don't feel in control. Somebody else is in control.
It's funny that the only thing that I can think about control in relation to where I felt I'm in control regarding various eating disorders I've had. When I was in hospital with anorexia nervosa, on the medical ward due to medical problems, I didn't realise at the time, but I can see that the link now about control. I was told that if I didn't start eating more, I would be tube fed. And I remember I didn't voice it out to anybody, but the fear that brought into me, and I can remember thinking, no, I say what I eat, I say when I eat, I say how much I eat, I want to know what it is. I'm not having somebody put something inside me that I don't know what it is, that they're doing it when, I don't know what it's made of, I don't know what it's going to do. And it's now I can look back and say that was an element of control that I really didn't know, that was an element of control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do, because you wanted to know, you know, like you say, you were investigating. I want to know what's in it. I want to know that. So I'm not going to take that, but over here I'll let this control me. I'll feel like this is controlling me. So ultimately, you know, you're in control. You relinquish control based on beliefs, and so that's what we do. We relinquish our control based on what we believe that something else is controlling us, instead of taking a step back and saying, you know, it's like, you know, when I spoke about on the last video about a dog being on a collar, and do we have empathy for the dog? Because we're in prison, so we've normalised being in prison, because we're not really looking out to say how, you know, what's imprisoning us. We're in prison, and so you know, when they say to you, that's why we have to pay tax, and somebody's going to tell you how much you're going to earn, and they're going to tell you how much they're going to take off you, and you say, oh, this is a law. It's not. It's a dictatorship. But we use different words, and we'll use a different story for it. Oh, well, they have to do it because of this, or they have to do it because of that. And it's like, no, you're still in a dictatorship. We are still dictated to, and so we have these false things to say you have freedom of speech, or you know, all these things that we're being told, just to move the spotlight away from the truth, instead of saying, no, it doesn't. Animals don't have to do that. Animals can go out and collect as much food as they want, and I don't see another animal saying, well, I'm the tax man, so I'm going to take 40% of your food or 20% of your food. Do you see what I mean? And so it's within our stories that we believe what we're told, and we don't ask a lot of questions. But why is it? Why is it like that? What is really going on? Yeah. So does that kind of help you kind of looking at where am I relinquishing control within my chattering ego?
Yeah. And
not only within the chattering ego, you seeing control within other people's ego, what they're saying to you. And so, you know, as I said a long time ago, people don't treat you bad because of who you are. And people don't treat you good because of who you are. They treat you that way because of who they're being.
Yeah. And that's been a real eye-opener and a big learning curve. I always used to think how people treated me, well, because I've done something wrong, because I wasn't a good person, because of this, that, and the other. And I'm learning that people, I don't fit in the equation. It's about them. What makes them feel good, what they've been told, what their story is, what their ego is saying, what image they want to put across. Half the stuff that people have treated me good and bad has nothing to do with me.
No,
it's more about them. And I know I've seen them quotes on Facebook that say all stuff like that, but I'm really trying to understand it now.
Well, it's looking at it and saying, you know, if somebody says, oh, that's because of you, or, you know, people do that, the blame game, it's because of them, and this is because of them, and they owe me. It's like that's what the ego tells everybody. You owe me, I'm doing it right, so you should do it the way I do it. And the ego always thinks it's right when it tells you it's wrong. It's not. That's, you know, when I spoke about Eric Watts talking about people in homogeneous groups think that they're normal. And that means, you know, in a group of people that all do the same thing. Do you see what I mean? So in a group of people that all do the same thing, we'll think that's normal. And it's like, so for instance, if we all go out for a drink, it's normal in there, but we don't view it as, well, we're all poisoning ourselves with this liquid with it because the contents in it aren't very good for us. But because we're all doing it, it's okay. Yeah. But, you know, and so, as I said before, when it's teaching, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do them? It's like, absolutely. Because that's what majority of us do. Unless you come outside of the box and you decide to say,